All right, it's 17:30 on the dot. I think we will respect you guys enough to start. So welcome everyone to another Tools and Techniques Thursday. My name is Tsepo. I am the Joburg Region's chairperson. These sessions are hosted by the South African instance of the internationally aligned Business Analysis Institute. Our sessions happen every week from 17:30 up to 6 o'clock. We try and respect that, but sometimes we don't really get it right. So do forgive us because sometimes people have questions that we need to get to. But you are free to drop off from 1800 if you need to go somewhere. Today's guest or guest presenter is Zanele Njapha. Zanele is an unlearning and transition expert. She's also an international speaker and helps companies facilitating people on moving from a place of stagnancy to a place where they can grow. So we're very, very privileged to actually get her because she's very, very busy. So Zanele, welcome to the Johannesburg chapter of the International Institute of Business Analysis. We feel very privileged to really have you here. And we know we're going to leave here transformed because I've had a couple of opportunities to converse with you. And I hope the people who are in the session as well will agree with me after this talk is over. So without any further waste of time, I'd like to hand you the stage so that you can blow us away. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Sepo, for that lovely introduction. It's such a pleasure to be with you. I'm just going to invite everyone who's watching my presentation now to go over to my square, my little Zoom square. You'll see on the top right-hand corner, there are 3 little dots. Just click on the 3 little dots and select the option Pin Video, because I'm not going to be sharing my presentation, but you will see my presentation as you see the screen behind me now. Just makes it a little bit easier. That way you can see my presentation and you can see my gorgeous face. So will you head over please and do that. That way you'll be able to see my screen nice and large. All right, I'd like this to remain as interactive and as fun as is possible, because usually when you step into a room and you tell people that you're a futurist, people tend to get a little bit jolted, unless they think that you're going to take out a crystal ball. That's another story altogether. But just to clarify, I don't work with crystal balls. Basically what I do is I help people to decode the future. I help people to decode the future of work and understand what are some of the trends and things they need to look out for to make a success out of their businesses and themselves in the future of work. So that's basically it. And like Tsepo said, my niche or my focus with organizations is that beginning part in any transition that we call the letting go phase, that part that's the hardest for most of us, hardest for companies. I basically come in and I help organizations to unravel some of the thought processes and the ways of doing things that have become so deeply entrenched in the organization, so that we can move forward into who we're becoming as a team, who we're becoming as a function, even as individuals and the larger organization. I invite you that even as we go today, please feel free to just head over to the chat box, throw your questions in there. I'm so happy to answer questions on the fly if I can. And if I miss any of them, Tsepo or anyone else who's facilitating, please do assist me with throwing those questions at me at the right time. So I like to do those things as we engage. All right, let's get started. I think let's just get smiles. I'm a big smiler, you might have already noticed. But if you can head over to the chat box and give me a smile to show me that you're present in the room and you're ready. Usually when I do later sessions, I found that people are a little less excited and engaged. But I like to encourage that we try. Oh my goodness, wow, that's so lovely. Thank you so much, guys. Those were very quick. And it tells me that you're ready for this session, because today's session, 8 Skills for the Future of Work, is really about how do we set ourselves up for the future of work. And this presentation is based off of research that my team at Tomorrow Today Global, that's our logo that you'll see in the corner there, Tomorrow Today Global, you might have heard of us. Basically, we did some research a while back into the future of work, and we narrowed it down to 8 skills that you and I, organizations, need in order to stay nice and future fit for what the future of work will bring. Lovely. I see some people found the emojis. Awesome. All right, let's start here to sort of set the scene for what we're going to talk about today in this short presentation. I'd like you to have a look at the picture I'm about to put up behind me and tell me if you can see the sleeping man. Now, some of you might have seen this before, so spoiler alert, don't spoil it for the rest of us. But if you can see the sleeping man in the image, just give me a yes, maybe even with an exclamation mark if you're feeling super excited. Awesome, thanks Nosipho. I feel like Nosipho's fingers are just living on the keyboard. That's lovely. Awesome. Okay, lovely. Now, it seems like most of us are not having much trouble with seeing the sleeping man. Now, have a look at the exact same image and tell me if you can see the sleeping woman in the picture. See if you can see a sleeping woman there. And then let me know in the chat box. This you might find will need a little bit more time from you. I find that clients often will do a twisting of the head, and then I've seen all sorts of things here, so you can't shock me. And try what you can or what you know to do so that you can see. I promise there is a sleeping woman in this exact same image. So just take a little bit of time. All right, I'm seeing a few no's. Let me give you a little bit of help. Tell me if this helps a little bit. Can you see the sleeping woman in the picture now? Is that getting a little better? Yes, Lizzie, I see you're saying yes, it's getting a bit easier. All right, and that's fine. I see some people are still saying no, and that's perfectly fine. I want you to just take that feeling that you feel now and try to put a word to it if you can. Now let's go back. Let's take another step back. Okay, Ketelo, let me just do this for everyone else who's having a little bit of a hard time. You'll see this darker part over here. That's the lady's hair. It's going down her neck. And then the lighter part is her skin, so it's her face and her neck. And then this purple part here is her top or her PJs, or whatever it is that she's wearing to sleep. And she's not facing the front. She's facing the side. I think most of the time, because we've seen the man facing the front, we often think, oh, the woman must be facing the front as well. And then we only look from that perception. So now try to apply. Lovely. My iPhone, you might want to change your name so I know who you are and I can address you correctly. Yes, I see you say you see her. Now let's take another step back. If you don't see her, please feel free to contact me afterwards and I'll happily help you with that. All that proves is that you and I have got schema around the way that we see things. So we've got all of these associations encoded into our minds around how we predict or how we perceive the world and everything in it. So that's basically what happens, and that's what's going on with you right now. Worry not, and that's where I come in. Now let's go back to the image that we started with. I'd like you to have a look at this image and tell me if you can unsee. Can you see the man without seeing the woman? Or can you just see the woman without seeing the man? And let's see if we can find our emojis again. If you're okay with doing that, give me a thumbs up. If not, give me a thumbs down. You see both. I really love what you've just said, Kundisani, is that what happens after we've become conscientized to the other way of doing things, now we're having a hard time going between the old way and the new way. And I love that you see that. Everyone's saying, oh my goodness, I see both. It's really hard to unsee one, right? And that's basically what unlearning is about. It's about how do we move from one way of doing things into something completely new that's a kind of transition. So it's all about how do we unravel or peel away those layers so that we can come into a new perspective or into a new way of being. Thank you so much for that interaction. I think it's so important to remember that in the time that we live in now, COVID-19 has just made it so obvious that we live in the time of the Weet-Bix. Now, this is a little term that I coined myself, and I'll tell you why. If you're a fan of Weet-Bix like me, let me know so I know I'm not alone. But Weet-Bix is a funny cereal because what happens, or Weetabix if you're in the UK and in other places in the world. But the thing about the cereal is that you pour your milk in, you turn around to put the milk in the fridge, and lo and behold, you come back to the bowl and the milk is completely gone. And that's what I feel like this time is all about. The 2020s are such an exciting time because we're finding that every single time we put our heads down to innovate, to come up with novel ideas, to be creative, or to shift the trajectory of our industries, we put our heads up and the milk is gone. It's like everything has completely changed. But that's not necessarily a bad thing, right? That's also a good thing, because it means that the 2020s are a decade of not only mass disruption, but they are a decade of innovation. I really like this quote that says that sometimes we find that there are decades when it seems like not much is happening, but then sometimes there are weeks or days where it feels like everything is happening. And that's where we are right now, especially with COVID-19. We're finding ourselves in a time where plans that we had planned in a 10-year cycle have been accelerated, and we find ourselves having to implement in about 3 or so months and even less. And this is where organizations are. And today, we were able to predict that the 2020s would be a time of accelerated change, where we would see a change that was almost unprecedented, unlike anything we've ever seen before. And I like this quote by Bill Gates, who says that there's going to be more change in the next 15 years than there has been in the next 50 years. And that's not necessarily saying, because, you know, some people say Bill Gates was able to predict COVID-19. It's not necessarily saying that that he's just sort of sucking out that prediction from his thumb, but it's saying that he understands that in our new normal, we're facing a different kind of innovation that needs you and I to show up in a completely different way. And the reason why is because we're now looking at a time of systems innovation. It's the time of not just inventing shiny new toys. And if there's anything you take away from this presentation, let it be this line, that it's no longer the time of inventing shiny new toys, because our augmented reality and our additive manufacturing and our artificial intelligence are all tools that we already have. But what the 2020s will see us doing is reimagining the systems and the way that we do things. So it's not just about doing things better, faster, and cheaper anymore. And and I like to just suggest this to you as you think about your organizations, don't just think, how can we do it better? How can we make it cheaper? How can we get it done even faster or deliver it faster? But think about how you can change the game altogether. And I think if there's any example, I'll show you the organizations now that have done exactly that. But I like to use this example that's a really great one. It's the example of the driverless cars, or autonomous cars, if you're a little fancier than that. If you think about our autonomous cars as we have them, obviously at the time when we are now in the early 2020s, they haven't reached that mass capacity of their full automation, which I think is going to be really exciting, because when you and I are able to see the real effects or the real benefits of autonomous driving or autonomous cars is when none of us are behind the wheel. Because let's face it, guys, you and I are actually the problem here. But not necessarily the problem in that way. But for us to gain the maximum benefit from autonomous cars is when they can communicate directly with each other and other systems that no longer need us to come in and intervene directly. Think about it. I love the example of this Uber system that we've got going on. Think about how much we can maximize the potential of this Uber kind of system when cars are fully autonomous and they don't need us to function. Think about if you've left your USB at home, or your daughter needs to get picked up. You could just as easily grab your phone and order an Uber that drives itself to do everything for you. And remember, the times that we are moving into, and one of the key trends we've spotted, is that today we don't want to own anything necessarily. Gen Z and even us, the millennials, we don't necessarily want to own anything. And the gig economy is fast tracking this. So everyone doesn't necessarily want anything to their name as long as the system serves them better. And this is the type of innovation that I'm talking about, that these organizations here that you see are starting to really accelerate and show just how much this type of innovation is taking the forefront. It's no longer about inventing shiny new toys, but it's saying, how can we completely change the game with these shiny new toys? So I'm just going to take a look at 3 or so really, really great trends that I want us to start to take notice of, and then I'm going to go into the future skills. So Tshepo, I'd like you to keep me on the loop. I think sometimes when I get a little bit excited, I forget to look at the time, but I promise I want to keep it all in the time frame with the intention of respecting everybody's time. So the very first one I want to speak about, and this is what we sort of touched on a little bit earlier, and it's this idea of the new ways of working. It's quite interesting. I was reading an article the other day. Actually, I was listening to a podcast rather the other day that was saying that the new ways of working are not going to feel like work, because we'll be working in a completely new way. Think about the gig economy and the growth, and then they'd call it the time of the freelancer, of you and I not necessarily being tied down to a 20-year job tenure, and being able to apply that flexibility to the way that we work. If anything, COVID-19 has just accelerated that. And I think it's so important for us to really start to think about how we are applying these new ways of working that empower people, organizations that speak directly to impact, but also to speaking directly with systems and innovation holistically. So this is a really great one to look into. Unfortunately, I won't go into too much detail with these because there is a little bit concern about our time. All right, so the next one is AI and algorithms. This one is really overspoken. I'm not going to say too much, but what I do want to say about applying information technology systems, about applying any form of AI, and even augmented reality AR into your organization or your business, or even into your daily life, is I want you to start to understand it completely differently. Because when I speak to clients, I've noticed people will go, oh my goodness, AI, it's intimidating. The robots are coming to take our jobs. And I always go, okay, breathe. Firstly, that's the first thing. And then secondly, the way that you perceive the role of the robots, or rather let's call it let's rather call it what it is rather than calling it the robots, because I think people sort of get that a little bit confused. Rather than thinking about it in that way, rather think about it in a switched way. So intelligent assistance instead of AI, because really the job of AI is to intelligently assist you and I in what we do. And so once you take it in that frame of mind, you're able to ask yourself, in what ways can my business, can my organization, can I as an individual be intelligently assisted as I move ahead in my organization? And in that way, you'll be able to move away from things like swivel chair tasks that are all put on your poor shoulders, but understand that you can be intelligently assisted so that you can do the things that human beings need to be doing in this exciting time, because this is the main thing here. And I know some of you might be getting a little bit nervous as I go through my presentation, and please tell me if you are or if you're not. But I think that the main thing here, and you may have heard this, and it's probably even sounding like a cliche, the main thing that you and I need to do is to understand, especially as we now go into these future skills, that where you and I need to focus as organizations and as individuals is what we bring to the table. What do human beings bring to the table that our machines don't? And here's the really important part, is that machines are not necessarily going to take our jobs, but each and every, and hear this, no one is safe, not even me, no one is safe, but each and every job is going to be automated to some extent. So the point is that machines are going to automate or take away tasks. So from now on, don't be part of the group that says the machines are going to come and take our jobs, but rather shift it and say there are tasks within my job frame that are going to be automated. So I need to understand what are the parts within my function or in my job that are not going to be automated, that I can do, but that I can maximize. And I think that the 2020s are such a great time for us to understand how we can really shift how we do our job. So it's not the time of the person who sits in the corner and says, okay, as long as I do 1, 2, and 3, I'm going to be okay. But it's the time for the individual who really looks outside of what the boss says is part of your function or your business unit, but extends that and really understands which parts should be done by human beings and which shouldn't. Now let's get right into these future skills. I'm super excited to start with them. So there are 8 different skills for the future of work that Tomorrow Today has developed. And those are all of them in the back there. Have a nice look. And I mean, they range from horizon scanning to diversity intelligence to personal intelligence. all really pivotal skills that you and I need to start to develop. But today I'm only going to take you through 3, unfortunately, because of the time that we have. If you do want to work on these future skills and start to extend yourself as you sort of polish these skills in getting yourself ready, getting your company ready, please head over to the Future of Work Academy. Tomorrow Today Global has a Future of Work Academy .com. You'll go there and you'll get access to a lot of really great free and paid courses that will help you sort of polish any of those 8 skills that you want to make sure you're nice and sharp at. So as we go through these 3, I want you to tell me which of these you find you're really strong at, and then which of these you find may need to be polished here and there. So this is a conversation of growth. I think that that's the most important thing that we need to outline. It's not one of those, oh my goodness, so-and-so, I know you're really bad at this, but it's one of those, okay, let's work together. How do we make sure that we sharpen these particular skills to get all of us ready as a collective? So the first one is personal intelligence. And when I think about personal intelligence, I always say, know thyself. And it sounds a little bit cheesy, but there's never been a time like the 2020s where it's been more important to understand what you bring to the table. This is no longer the time of being a jack of all trades and master of none. It's important for us to horizon scan, the first skill, so understand what's going on around us, but it's so important to niche. It's so important to have an aspect where you understand that that's your strength. That's the area that they call your sweet spot, so that you can maximize your potential in that area. And I always think that one of the best ways to do that is to learn, unlearn, and relearn consistently in that area, or 2 or 3 or 4 different areas where you've chosen to zero in. And you'll see at the back here, this is a nice wall of paint. If you want to apply a brand new coat of paint to a wall, what do you have to do? What do you have to do before you apply your new fresh coat of paint? Let's see. I'm watching the chat box. If you can let me know, what do you need to do before you apply a nice fresh coat of paint to a wall? Let's see where all the painters are. Right? You don't even need to be a painter to get that. Exactly. So you have to strip all of the old paint from the wall. And I always say that it's the organizations that can strip off the old paint, put a new coat on, and then strip off that coat, put a new coat on, that are going to be the organizations that are going to disrupt their industries and maintain and be relevant and sustain in the 4th industrial revolution, as so many of us are calling it. Because it's never been more important, especially when it comes to personal intelligence, understanding what you bring to the table, what your value is in the larger system. You need to consistently learn, unlearn, and then relearn what it means to be what you are at any given time. So I think that that's a really, really, really important one. And one of the other ways that you can do that is to take that balcony view. And so many of us, I think as time goes on, we really start to put on our blinkers and really, really zero down. But even in that area that you've chosen, I'd like to encourage you to take on a balcony view. Come up from where you are. Take a much larger view of your industry holistically. Understand what the bigger players are doing, but then also understand what the smaller players are doing. Because you'll recognize that slide that we just looked at just now of organizations that weren't in existence. Those were small players at one stage, and the bigger guys didn't see them coming. So it's important. This one is really great for horizon scanning, which is the very first skill. Next one, creativity and intuition. This one can sound a little bit fluffy. Let me give you an example. My father, when he met my mom, this was back in the days, I was still a twinkle in his eye, but he met my mother, and his line, he says that his famous line that he said to her was, "Ziphi ingane zami," which in isiZulu means, "Where are my children?" Now that's creepy. Like today, if a guy says that to you, you run. But so I guess she didn't, because here I am, right? But the point is, when he met her, he had the sense of intuition. There was the sense of, I know what I want, and I'm coming here to build that agenda with you. And so that's what intuition is about. This is the time of the gut feelers. It's the time of the people who follow that gut feeling, that they know there's a hunch or some sort of insight that leads them into something great. And that's what creativity is all about. It's all about coming out of those frameworks that we've worked on for so long, breaking barriers, understanding what can be done and what can't be done. I spent a good few years in my professional career as a primary school teacher right in the beginning. And I know this creativity is all about understanding which of the rules can be broken. If you think about guys like Elon Musk and Bill Gates, the reason why they do the profound things that they do is because they understand which of the rules can be broken. Unlike you and I, who sit around and go, nope, that's a rule. You can't break that. Just be careful. But when you understand which of the rules are set in stone and which of them are not, because they don't have to be that way, then you apply this creativity that we often speak about. And the last one that I thought would be absolutely perfect for this platform, definitely one of my favorite, is initiative and entrepreneurship. When I speak to a lot of organizations, I always say that I'm a big fan, or I always encourage the spirit of entrepreneurship. And what I mean by this is don't all, quit your 9-to-5s and go and start a business. But I'm talking about the way that entrepreneurs think. I'm talking about the mindset. I'm talking about the fire of the entrepreneur. If you think about it, and I like the principle of design thinking, because it says that the entrepreneur is client-centric. The entrepreneur is iterative in their approach. They do their market research, they go back to drawing board, they draw things up, they test them out, and if it doesn't work, they consistently work on this process. And that's what we need. Especially in a time when there's so much value in experimentation, we need to be entrepreneurial. Whether we're a part of a team, whether we're the guy right at the bottom of the food chain, if you are entrepreneurial in your thinking, you are going to see it. Other people are going to see it, because entrepreneurs are problem solvers. They're solution givers. Those are the types of individuals who think like entrepreneurs, don't necessarily have a table somewhere at some, I don't know, value chain store, whatever it is, but those are the individuals that think entrepreneurially. I like this FMCG organization that has this concept that they call "It's My Business." So each and every individual, and this is a multi-global organization, each and every person in the organization is encouraged to say, Company X is my business. So that when they do anything, when they have an engagement, when they stand around at the water cooler or text on WhatsApp, they always think, this is my business. Would I be acting in the exact same way if this was my business? Would I be ensuring that profits come over engagement sometimes if this was my business? And so what that does is it gets everyone to think entrepreneurially and own the business so that it can flourish. I think that that's really, really, really important for me. And just to wrap up, I'm going to show you for the last time what those 8 skills are, so that you can see which ones we spoke about and which ones we didn't. And even if you can have a look at all 8 of them, I'd like you to tell me which of those you think you might need to work on a little bit more. As you have a look at all of them. And I think that diversity intelligence that you see there, unfortunately, when we bring up the conversation of diversity in South Africa, people instantly go to the BEE conversation. But diversity intelligence is about being aware of how our teams can embrace different perspectives, how our teams can embrace different ways of seeing things, how our teams can embrace different ways of not just acting out, but different ways of executing. And this is a really, really great one. It's all about really not just understanding that, but creating an environment in our organizations where diversity of all forms can thrive. And so that's why I find this one extremely exciting. I don't see anyone in the chat box who's letting me know which of these they'd like to work on. So I'm guessing everyone's perfect. I shouldn't even be here. I don't even know why I was invited. If everyone is okay. And I'd just like to end it off with this. So what are you going to do? Now that you understand a little bit more around where the future of work is calling all of us and what some of the skills are that you need to equip yourself to be not just surviving in the 2020s, which are a decade of mass disruption. If you think that 2020s have been disruptive, you haven't seen anything yet. It's just the beginning. And when I say that, sometimes I get a little bit teary-eyed because I always want to say, get ready. Get ready, get ready, get ready. If there are lessons you're learning now, make sure you put them in your pocket, because by the time we reach halfway through the 2020s, you're going to be like, my goodness, what a ride. And you would have wished that you learned all of these lessons now. So make sure you get going and you do what you can. So even if you don't tell me about these lessons, go write them down, jot them down, think about it, spend some time looking at this. I'm going to leave you lastly with my contact details. If you do want to reach out to me and talk to me, ask me questions, if you're still struggling with seeing the woman and the man, let me know, I'll help you out with that. And also just to follow my work or anything else, I would strongly appreciate that. I'm open to any kind of conversation with you. Reach out to me on LinkedIn. That's probably your best bet as well. If we still have time, I will take 1 or 2 questions. I didn't see anything in the chat box as far as I can see, as far as questions are related. So if anyone does have questions, Sepa, you'll let me know if we do still have a few seconds for questions. If not, I'm happy to take those via email. Thank you very much, guys.
Thank you so much, Zanele. I think personally, I'm one of your biggest people. I really love your work, and I know we constrained you because you typically are like a keynote speaker, talking an hour at least, and international at that. So, but our format dictates what we can do, and I think you did very well. You did justice to it. Everybody who's here, I'm sure they gained a lot from what you were saying, and there's resonance there, because I think what I'm seeing in the chat box is that this was really great. And if there's anyone else who has any questions, we will definitely direct them to you if they can't see your emails or something happens and they can't get to you. So guys, is there anyone else who would like to unmute and ask a specific question to Zanele? President? Okay.
Yes, can you hear me?
I think, yeah, we can.
Sorry. I was trying to unmute. No questions, but thank you very much, Zanele. This was quite insightful and informative as well. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you for having me.
Cool. All right. Yeah. Thank you so much, Zanele, and have a very good evening. We'll chat on the other side.
All right. Thank you. Thank you very much, everyone. It's been a pleasure.
All right. Brilliant. Thank you, everybody. Good night. Next week, we have another talk. Cheers and bye-bye.